Yeah, this is yours truly. I'm back at you. It's been a minute. Um, it's been a struggle, but I'm here. I'm here to enlighten those of you that are interested in being enlightened. If you're not interested in encouragement, inspiration, or a message of hope, or something that you could identify with that will help you overcome where you are spiritually, intellectually, mentally, maybe even physically. So I got some things going on too, man, nobody knows about. But here we are, man. Once again, this is going to be inspirational, motivational lesson, not lesson. Let's take the lesson out because the whole world, the universe is a school. And a lot, it's just like you go into high school or in grade school or junior high. There's the school. You might go and catch the bus and go to school every day. But that don't mean you're applying yourself and studying. So let's not say it's lesson because some just go for the lunch. Some go to steal from other kids. Some go to get away from home from the abuse and the violence. And so they never apply to the lessons. And the same way with life. A lot of people around here, man, they ain't caring. They don't give no care whatsoever how their lives turn out. I just had a young brother today, man. I'm just not learning this social media stuff. So when I see posts that gives me a chance to throw in some history, some Afrocentric history, some Native American history, some Spanish history, some European history, anything to educate and lift up my people. And when I say my people, okay, I am a multi-ethnic individual. My mother is Mescalero, Apache, and Spanish. My father is African and Irish. So I identify as a multicultural individual. I'm 61 years old. I never checked the boxes when they tried to force me and called my parents, and I got swats at school in the 60s because I would not allow anybody to force me to define who I am. Okay? I knew from the beginning who I was. And yes, I know where I'm at. So, with that being said, I knew that even though my grandmother was from Ireland on my dad's side, and my grandfather was from Africa on my dad's side, and my grandmother on my mama's side was Mescalero, Apache, and my grandfather was Cherokee. I knew that I was a black man or a man of color, an indigenous man. You just cannot get through that. That one drop blood, that's that shit's real, man. And even if it ain't the one drop that they put on us back in the day, if you got some black in you, whether you want to accept it or not, you are a black person because that's how the world is going to see you. That's how they're going to receive you. And the only way you can get around that is if you assimilate and you take advantage of your light complexion or your straight hair or that part of your European ancestry that would give you that opportunity to assimilate. I never wanted that. I mean, I never wanted that. I grew up with that, man. I grew up in a family that was so divided, it was terrible. Matter of fact, I believe that's one of the reasons why my grandfather, Loxie Uzell Sanders Sr., and my grandmother, hmm, Clara Bell Tedder Franklin, it didn't work. I don't know. I've been told stories, but I have my own, now that I'm 61 years old, I have my own insight and perspective to the whole reality because I grew up in that mess. On Sundays, I had to eat dinner after going to Catholic church with a very staunch and strict Catholic great grandmother whose name was Mary Franklin. Her people were from Ireland, okay? And on um, that Sunday after church, we would all have a big family dinner. All the members would come. So I'd see all these red hair white people. I'd see all these people, these men who were white. You know what I mean? And then I would have to go on Saturday, culture shock now, to my grandfather's house in Hawkins Park, and it was all black. My aunties were black. My cousins were black. Everybody was black. So here I am. I'm like, man, what does a multi-ethnic child do in the 1960s, man? Come on, man. Somebody tell me. Hit that subscribe or whatever you do and give me some feedback, man. I'm talking about way back in the day, and whether you believe it or not, man, I'm 61 years old. I got all my hair. You know what I mean? I'm wearing my Native American garb because this is what I feel like today. Because there's been so much damage and destruction and genocide done to my mother's people. Their culture is not even talked about today. You don't never hear nothing about Native Americans anymore. You know why? Because they stole our land, took our gold, marched us from the mountains of Georgia all the way, probably about 3,000 miles. Now, I'm not trying to be exact. I'm giving you an estimation. They marched us about 3,000 miles. That's the Cherokee Nation on my grandfather's side, and put us on a reservation. And that's cool. That's what they did. But that's after they took the gold. So now my people's tugged away in a reservation where they can confine their ideology, they can control their movement. You know what I mean? They give them a couple of casinos, knowing that, come on, man, what kind of what do you call that? Reparations is that? You take a culture's whole country, say it's yours. They were here long before you got here. 55,000 years before the white man landed, the black Native American was on this land, man. There's scientific research that validates that. But you took all the land, you took all the gold, you took all the minerals, you took everything you could and just tucked us all away. Choctaws over here, the Ute Nation over here, the Mescaleros over here, Mescalero Apaches over here, the other Apache group over here, the Cherokees in Oklahoma, you got the Chickasaws, you got the Seminoles, you got the Iroquois, you got the Blackfoot. Some of our tribes don't even exist anymore. Very few even still have their language. And that's because of manifest destiny. These people don't care who they kill. They don't care who they maim. They don't care what they do in the name of manifest destiny to take your shit, man. And they coming. They coming after the black culture now. Look at what's going on. You know what I mean? It's sad. The CIA in this document got involved in the 1980s. They started throwing guns and weapons and ammunition on just leaving train cars just abandoned in city streets in Los Angeles, Cincinnati, Detroit, Chicago, everywhere they could to get to set these brothers off, to give them some ammunition, see, to feed on their self-hatred that they taught them, to feed on their desire to want to hurt somebody for the pain they was feeling. So these people didn't know they was being, you know what I mean, put into a trap. So they go get all these guns. Next thing you know, now we got gangs. There's more gangs in Los Angeles in our big cities than there are police officers. The police can't even handle the gang violence now. They're making pacts with them. Okay, you just run your neighborhood and we won't mess with you now. Don't get too out of control because then we got to come in. So they got contracts now. Now they got cartels running everything, man. Come on, man. I ain't trying to talk about nobody. I'm just keeping it real with you, okay? Because I know where I come from. And I know what I did, all right? And I know what they're about, okay? I was a soldier. I left being a heroic soldier at 19 years old, became a substitute teacher, gave that up because my daughter got killed at 16. Because again, white supremacy. See, white boy didn't. She didn't want to get with this white boy, so he said, "You know what? I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take this shit." So she was invited to a high school graduation party. 16 years old, man. 1998. All right, my firstborn named Jada Nicole Sanders. All right, beautiful, beautiful daughter, man. Wow, she was my baby, my firstborn, man. When I come home from the war and I saw my baby in 1981, born December the 1st, man, you don't know how little Vato man from the streets feels, bro. You know what I mean? You don't know what that did to me. And so you know what happened? I got really attached to my baby. And I lived for my baby. I worked for my baby. And so here's my daughter, 16, at a high school senior party. She graduated at 16 years old, getting ready to go to college. She wanted to be a teacher. She's up there. She's up there somewhere, man. She's in another universe doing what she does. But at the same time, it was her that kept them bullets from riddling my body. See? Because I didn't give up the streets. Even though I buried my first brother, I was 9 years old when they killed my brother. His name was Little Kenny. He was actually my first cousin, but because my uncle was the type of guy that didn't, you know what I mean, this dude was, I don't like to talk about the dead, but it's facts. He didn't take care of his kids. He didn't give a shit about his kids. And so it was indicative. So my dad being the clan, the tribe dude he was, he brought him on in the house. Okay, we're gonna raise you like my son. And that was my big brother. So here I'm at 9 years old, man. And I'm looking over my big brother. He's 14 years old. He done been shot 3 times. Once in the chest and twice in the back as he turned around and tried to run from a crooked cop. I'm talking about 1971. Okay? 1971. That ain't the only pain that my family had to deal with during the 70s. And a very outspoken, very, very well known throughout the United States and abroad first cousin named George Lester Jackson. He was the field marshal for the Black Panther Party. Huey Newton and I believe it was Bobby Seale went to him in 1964 and asked him, "Would you be our field marshal?" At the time, he didn't want nothing to do with the Black Panther Party because at that time in '64 they were about violence. They hadn't really adapted a political platform, and they weren't really coming with the type of message that he felt like he wanted to get involved in because of his work inside San Quentin prison. See? So as time evolved, he got even more sharp with his Mao Zedong mentality and intellect. He began to study Karl Marx, Lenin, see? Frantz Fanon. I mean, some of the great educators and intellects of the day who had already dealt with the socialism, the democracy, the capitalism, ended up getting involved with Angela Davis. It's documented. Fact check me. He ended up getting involved with Angela Davis. Most of you know who Angela Davis was. He called her his tender love, revolutionary love. They had a revolutionary love affair because he was locked away in prison. He was 16 years old, and he was in the car with his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law robbed a gas station for about $72, something like that. George was asleep in the back seat. And when the California Highway Patrol pulled up on him, George got arrested along with his brother-in-law. And they gave George 1 year to life in prison. They call that an intermittent prison sentence, which is totally against the law. There's no way that that they should have been able to do that to this 16-year-old kid. In other words, you go in here, and if we tell you to bow down, nigga, you bow down, and you can get out after a year. But nigga, if you don't bow down, we might keep you for 5 years. And then if you really want to stir up some shit, nigga, we'll keep you for 10, 20 years. And as they continue to put the longevity on his release, George saw really no way out, man. So he got involved with the penal system and started educating the young black males and the Hispanics, teaching them how to read and write, helping them pass their GEDs. So he became very powerful within the California penal system. And to this day, I mean, I'm not bragging because I don't have to roll off of my cousin's reputation because I got my own, okay? But my cousin changed the California penal system in such a way that these crackers hated it, man. They didn't want that. They didn't want that. They wanted a nigga to be in there disrupting and tearing shit up. And George wasn't on that. So as time went on, George met some brothers in there, and they organized and started the Black Guerrilla family. Okay? Fact check me. I'm not riding off of him, brothers. I don't need that. But I appreciate and respect all the support, all the safety, and everything that I've received throughout the world because I travel. And even as a young man, it was some people who were definitely underground that kept me alive because I was involved in some revolutionary stuff myself. Okay? But George, in 1970, George was involved in an altercation. An altercation at San Quentin Prison. No, actually, it was at Soledad Prison. It was at Soledad Prison in California. Him and 3 other brothers. One, the guard, there was a few, because the Klan was always on him, man, because he had bodyguards. My cousin would do 500 to 1,000 push-ups a day. You understand? All you got to do is go online and look up George Lester Jackson if you think I'm lying. They wrote back, matter of fact, in the 1980s, they made a movie. MGM Universal Studios made a movie called The Soledad Brothers, The Prison Letters of George Lester Jackson. They depicted him negatively, made him look like he was doing some very vile and inhumane stuff while he was locked up in prison as a young man and then as an older man, which that wasn't true. You know what I mean? Sure, he had to survive, and I'm sure he had to bust some heads and do what he had to do because he went in to a men's penal colony at 16 years old. So you know there were pedophiles after him. You know stuff went down that we really don't know. I wasn't there, so I don't know. I can only imagine what my cousin went through. But at the end of the day, he became, there's a Mongolian proverb that I remember being taught. Be careful how you entertain the weakest cub, because he may become the greatest warrior. And George was that great warrior, okay? He was the tiger that was unleashed. And he and his boys didn't play. And these Nazi crackers that would come in there and they would put hits on him, and George would, they always, every time he leave, they would shackle his feet and his hands, and he had to shuffle his feet because George was a martial artist. This dude was just incredibly strong, man. And I'm talking about he was a monster, okay? And he had to be, because you looking at me, you looking at George. Light complected, curly hair, fine features. It ain't our fault, man. It ain't my fault that the slave master raped my ancestor. It ain't your fault, but it happens, okay? So we put into this world, man. We didn't ask to come here. Ain't nobody asked us that we want to come into this inhumane type of reality and be treated like we had to be treated to come up to where we are now. So the fight broke out. And George and his boys, You know what I mean? The Black Guerrilla family didn't play about their chiefs and their brothers, man. They wasn't on that. They wasn't that what they wasn't no game. They was an organized political, educational, okay, militaristic organization. They wasn't into that drug running in the prisons. I'm talking about at the time, bro. I did my research and I know, okay? I'm a little kid who has contact back and forth knowing what's going on with my cousin, okay? All right? So none of that was even involved back then. I don't know what happens now. I can only imagine. All right? But them brothers kept it dress right dress. And so this Nazi dude, a fight broke out between the two groups. They got beat down. One of the boys, one of the two or three of the Nazis got killed or got shot from the tower guard. They put the murder on the three brothers called the Soledad brothers. Okay, so as George is writing his letters, his sadness and his pain because this guy, man, he's already been in prison, man, for 12 years for a $72 gas station robbery that he didn't even do. Okay? So here he is now, man, being put on life. They give him life. They take him to court. They give these three brothers life in prison. Okay? So George's little brother named Jonathan Peter Jackson. Jonathan was an amazing young man. Jonathan had already got a scholarship to go to a university in France to study political science. But Jonathan was the true revolutionary. He was the true revolutionary. All he saw was the fact that they were being inhumane and treating his big brother the way they were not going to allow anyone to treat him. So Jonathan and a couple of his brothers got together and they went to Marin County Courthouse and they took a judge hostage and two or three of the deputies and a couple of secretaries. And they announced it on live television that we are the real revolutionaries. Free the Soledad brothers, or we taking these hostages. And as he got into the white van, they say, the California Highway Patrol with over 200 some officers shot up the van and riddled it with bullets. And inside was killed the judge and three or four other people, Jonathan and the two brothers, at 16. So this is kind of violence, man, I had to deal with as a kid growing up. Then right after that, the following year in 1972, George was involved in a relationship with Angela Davis. She had got on his legal team, and she was under FBI or CIA, what do you call it? Investigation. They were profiling and watching her because of her communist connections and her connections to the Black Panther Party, which you have to understand that during this time, the United States government was engaged in covert things that were not really, should have never happened. But this is what happened when you put a brother in office and you give him authority to be over other people of color. You know what I mean? Many of our people have assimilated and have done more destruction to their people or to our people that our captors have done. So this guy was a handkerchief head. He was a simulator. He was a coward. He didn't want to accept his race. He had black ancestry. His family had African ancestry, but his name was called J. Edgar Hoover. Fact check me. Fact check me. Okay? So this brother, or cracker, whatever you want to call him, I call him a coward. He started a program called counterintelligence program called COINTELPRO. And this is where they identified and infiltrated hate groups, the Nation of Islam, the Black Panther Party, the El Rukns, and back in the day, I think the Viceroy started in our neighborhoods in Chicago. Later on, it was the Black P-Stones. It was just a whole bunch of militant groups who were coming up. This was like a subculture that had to come up in the 60s because this was the only way our communities could be protected because them cracker cops, man, came inside our communities and did what they wanted to do. They'll beat you down, they bust you up, they kill you, and nothing would be done. It's not like it is now. And in the first year, not the first year, I take that back. By 1969, there was over 900, almost 1,000 murders of black men and black women who were involved in the Black Power movement by the hands of the COINTEL program through the efforts of the CIA and the FBI and local police departments. Okay? Now, this is what I grew up in. All right? And so when George had a meeting with one of his lawyers, and they wanted to talk about, let's talk about this case. All right? There was a recorder, we call it a tape recorder, that they said, allegedly, a 38 revolver was inside this tape recorder. And George grabbed the tape recorder, took the gun out the tape recorder, and tried to escape. Now, come on, man. How's a brother with that much intelligence breaking down Marxist and Lenin, socialism, theology, communism, the Communist Manifesto? This brother is outrageously intelligent, and he knows he's in a maximum security prison, and he's going to try to escape with a 38 special. Come on, man. Are you kidding me? That's amazing. And if that's the best you can come up with, then you got it. But Bob Dylan, all kind of other singers, everybody at the time knew what happened to George. They sacrificed him. They killed him because his voice was too powerful. But you might kill the man, but you can't kill the message, okay? Because that message still resonates today throughout the world, okay? So here we go. We got little Kenny killed. I'm 9. At 13, my first cousin, my dad was always taking our people in because my dad was one of them. Loxy Bone Sanders was an incredible man. I'm telling you, my daddy was something else. My daddy only had a 7th, 8th grade education, but he was the smartest man I ever knew. And I studied at probably about 6, 7 different universities. And I never met a professor or instructor who was as smart and intelligent as my dad. Okay? But he was hard. So Dad had a first cousin named Tommy Tedder. And Tommy and I shared a bedroom. Tommy went to work. He was 23 years old. He went to work. 2 black dudes, he was a bartender. 2 black dudes get into a fight on the north side. I believe it was the tavern was called the Harlem Inn on the north side. So Tommy goes over to these dudes and he's like, "Hey man, you gotta tone it down. I got customers in here, man. You can't be fighting like that over a pool game. Here's how we're gonna handle this. I'm gonna give you your quarter and I'm gonna give you your quarter and y'all got to go, man." So one of the brothers named Richard Dunnigan, he leaves. He's gone. He don't want no problems. It's over with him. Now there was another brother who had just moved to town probably about 6, 7 months before that. He was trying to establish himself as a real gangster. His name was Willie Walker. I'll never forget it, man. I was only 13 years old, but I remember it like the day. All right? So Willie goes somewhere and he gets a 16 gauge shotgun. He has it hid under a trench coat because at that time it was not winter, but it was fall, in probably around September, October, if I can remember right. I was 13 years old. But anyway, he comes back. He sees around the north side on Harlem and Schuyler and on Birch Street, there's a lot of little taverns there, man. We called them taverns then. Y'all call them clubs now, but there was some taverns there. So he tells the prostitute, because the corners is always running, bro. They working in them cities, all right? So he goes up to a prostitute and he said, hey, go in there and tell that young man in there, that light skinned dude in there, that somebody want him out here. She didn't know, man. Or maybe she did. Maybe she was the mark. I don't know. I'm 13. I'm just telling the story the way it was told to me. All right? So she goes and she tells Tommy, hey, somebody out there want to see you. So he goes, and he's a happy-go-lucky dude, man. He's only 23, man. He was my homie. This dude taught me so much, man. It's so sad, man, that the good ones always leave us. Anyway, he steps out on the front, the first step, and the dude shoots him in his face and blows the whole left side of his face off. We have to have a closed casket. All right? Sad, man. This is what I grew up with. Violence, homicides, genocide, fratricide, the destruction of black civilization. All right? Number 11 will be sometime. I'm out, fam.